Phil Goff was sacked, not by the Prime Minister, but Winston Peters took things into his own hands and decided, because he was Foreign Minister, that Phil Goff's comments regarding Trump were not appropriate for his role as the High Commissioner to London. And he got sacked pretty much on the spot, really. Lots of things around this, Clint, that I'm sure you have plenty to say. But let's just jump into the story and quickly get a rundown of what was said and why he was sacked. And I was going to ask Chewie, if he comes back in time, some historic context. But Clint, if you've got any
Sure.
wise words to add in the small segment here, but let's go.
Sure.
With some sound.
Becky Sherman has more details and reaction.
A career politician since entering Parliament in 1982, Phil Goff has served as a cabinet minister, Labour leader, Mayor of Auckland, and up until today, the High Commissioner to the UK. He's been told to go after comparing Donald Trump's approach to Russia and the war in Ukraine to a speech from Winston Churchill at a public talk on international relations.
You had the choice between war and dishonour. You chose dishonour, yet you will have war.
He then mentioned the bust of Churchill seen here looming over that explosive meeting between Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky.
President Trump has restored the bust of Churchill to the Oval Office, but do you think he really understands history?
While some laugh.
So, I'm not a history nerd.
Okay.
Chewie is the history nerd. Oh, is he just back in time? Clint, if you have anything just to say quickly, otherwise I was going to get Chewie to hopefully fill us in on what he said and why he said it.
No, let Chewie go for it if you see.
Is he here? No, he'll come back.
No.
I'm sure he's got plenty to say. You carry on, Clint.
Okay. So, yeah, bit of, I guess, historical context there. Goff was referring to something that Churchill said to Neville Chamberlain, who was the Prime Minister just before World War II and at the start, when he signed the famous Munich Agreement, which gave away effectively Czechoslovakia to Nazi Germany. And it was meant to be peace in our time. There's the famous photo of Neville Chamberlain waving this agreement when he got back to England. And of course, it wasn't peace in our time. It was what we call appeasement. And all it did was delay the war and, in fact, make Nazi Germany stronger. And so the comparison with the US now siding with Russia over the Ukraine war is what Phil was going for there. So a little bit of context. My first political job was in Phil Goff's leader's office in 2011. Came in just in time for the disastrous campaign that saw us lose that election. So I was a very junior researcher. I probably saw him about 3 times in that 6 months. So we're not great mates, but I've spent a little bit of time with him over the years in various contexts. He's a enormously experienced politician. He's been foreign minister himself, and it's kind of strange that he would make a comment like this in a forum. A little bit of context, that happened at Chatham House, and I don't know if this is sort of a widely known thing, but there's a thing called Chatham House rules in politics where if you make a speech under Chatham House rules or have a meeting under Chatham House rules, what is said in that meeting can be reported, but not who said it. And that is meant to allow people to speak more freely. He may have thought that this thing was under Chatham House rules because it was happening at Chatham House, but it wasn't. It was being broadcast, hence the video that we just saw. So maybe he spoke a bit more freely than he otherwise would have, and maybe he made a bit of a mistake there. But definitely, something that it was an error. It's something that as the High Commissioner he probably shouldn't have been saying. But on the other hand, is it a firing offence? It seems quite hard. Yeah.
I can understand why Peters would make the decision, considering the situation with Trump and how volatile he is, showing that kind of hard. They're very lots of spine, the opposite of a jellyfish, a cockroach maybe, and sort of putting a hard line and saying, "Hey, let's not piss off Trump right this second because he could put some pretty hard shit on our economy." Yeah, Chewie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I thought this was bizarre, and I think it's going to play out quite strangely for the general public as well. I think some of Chris Hipkins' comments about this are quite enlightening. He made the comment that, hey, there's a difference between being a politician involved in politics and a diplomat being involved in diplomacy, and that seems to be the big issue. The diplomats tend to have to be very, very careful with their words, and even a pretty mild comment can be taken as a huge slight. So I don't know if this is Winston thinking he's going to get ahead of something, but for the general public, I mean, when I saw the video and read the transcript and that sort of thing, I was like, this is the most mild of comments. Like it's not like he came up and he was like doing, Friday night at the Apollo and just going, "Hey, Trump's a big dummy." Yeah. It was a historical question and a sort of comparison, but for Winston to come in with the big guns, the sack a high commissioner to the UK, seemingly without asking anybody. I don't know how that plays out, and I guess a chain of command. He is foreign minister; it's within his purview. But I think this would be something that you would run up the chain before you pulled the trigger, or there might be other avenues before you get to pulling the pin on your high commissioner. But it seems really odd that I guess the second part of the story is that he didn't ask the prime minister. He told him afterwards.
Yeah.
And then when questioned
segued.
that, after that goes, I don't need to ask the prime minister. I made him the prime minister.
Yeah, extraordinary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just, for me, that's the biggest part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just play the wee clip because I have got that set up, and I know you guys can see it. But can the chat see this time? I know you can hear it. Is there a big picture on the screen? If not, I am sorry. But you'll at least be able to hear it. Yeah, thank you. I don't know what's going on.
Hey,
yes, you're right.
Throwback to last night's show. Just putting it on YouTube here. The ad that's playing before I can see it is Betcha.
Some gambling. Is it Lotto? They still can't see it, but that's all right. You guys can see it, and the commentary is the big important part. At least you can hear it. But yes, you're right. I found, and I'd love to hear your thoughts afterwards, Clint, on Chris Hipkins and also former Prime Minister Helen Clark's comments around this. But we'll just play a wee bit of where Winston says that he went over the Prime Minister's head, which seems a bit strange, if you ask me.
For Winston Peters to make.
Goff's former boss and Labour Prime Minister Helen Clark today calling it a very thin excuse for a sacking.
I don't listen to Helen Clark and I don't respond to Helen Clark. She used to be Prime Minister, she's not Prime Minister today.
But even today's Prime Minister wasn't consulted.
Because I'm the Minister for Foreign Affairs.
He's the Prime Minister.
Has anyone suggested...
No, one more time. Look, this is not juvenile time. I know he's the Prime Minister. I made him the Prime Minister.
I don't need to be, and I expect my ministers to have total accountability over their portfolios. They're empowered to do that.
And do that, Peters did.
So,
my 2 cents on the I have full, what is it? I give my ministers full authority to do whatever's necessary within their portfolio. My first thought comes to Erica Stanford. and her associate minister, David Sewell. But that's another discussion for another day. Clint, what do we think? I'm curious to see what you think about Chris Hipkins and Helen Clark's thoughts around this. Because Chris seemed pretty like, I'm not going to comment either which way.
Yeah, I think you have to understand there's really deep personal relationships there. Helen Clark and Phil Goff go back 40 years. When she stood down as leader after 2008, apparently at the caucus meeting after the election loss, she said, Phil's taking over. And that's when he became the leader, and Hipkins worked for Phil Goff when he was a staffer. They also go back a long way. So that, for both of them, they wouldn't want this to be the final chapter in Phil Goff's political career. I think what Chippy said about, there is a difference when you're a public servant versus a politician. I saw before this on Twitter some people pointing out that Judith Collins had made comments sort of along similar lines to what Goff had said, arguably stronger in condemning the comments that the US government has been making about Ukraine. But, she's a minister. She's politically accountable. Well, in theory, she's accountable to the Prime Minister and ultimately to the voters, whereas the job of a High Commissioner is to represent the government's views and not, substitute his own opinions for those. So, it's a hard one. It would be, it would be sad if this was kind of like the end point of Phil Goff's political career, because he has been doing so much for so long, and it needn't be. He can still come and do useful work, I'm sure. On the other stuff, Luxon, it's funny. He goes, they have full accountability. It's like he was saying the other day, Seymour is responsible for the school lunches program. But those words, accountable, responsible, to whom? To the Prime Minister, right? His job is to make sure that the people under him are doing the right thing. And all he ever seems to say is, they can go for it. I don't, it's their portfolios, go for it. And that's not usually how it works. Like the idea that the foreign minister in any government would sack the High Commissioner to London, the most prestigious diplomatic appointment that New Zealand has, without talking to the Prime Minister, it's just unbelievable. No normal government would do that. When if I digress a little bit, when I was Phil Twyford's ministerial advisor, I remember a few months in, like 3 months in, he said, Cabinet has done 1,000 pieces of business so far since we've come into government. And, I was like, this huge amount of stuff you guys have to go through, it's really draining. I wonder if, you should be covering this. They have to, every individual board member on like the CAA or every little board that the government has to go to Cabinet to be signed off, and Phil said, no, we're a team. We need to know what each other's up to. We need to be able to support each other. And so, everything goes to Cabinet. And so the idea that this, massive decision over who represents New Zealand in London is taken without the Prime Minister even knowing. And when he finds out, he's like, no, I'm cool with it. Yeah, cheer, no worries. It's pretty embarrassing. It just shows who's really in charge once again.
It seems... And I mean, this makes a lot of sense to me. Whenever Luxon has gone, hey, look, I have full faith in my minister and they carry out their portfolio and that sort of thing, that is very corporate. That the manager trusts his department heads to just do their fucking job and leave him out of it. But it's not how politics works. And I think, like, I keep remembering, Luxon doesn't have a portfolio. His job, as he sees it, is to manage the government as a whole. But then when you see this, he isn't. he isn't included in what's going on. And when he's questioned about it, because he is the leader, he just palms it off to the back to the minister again, like it doesn't involve him. It's really strange. I don't think we've seen anything like this before.
It was such a huge flex from Peters there to say, "I made him prime minister." You know, it says who's really running this and who's the show pony.
What's your share of the vote there, boss? You know, but I mean, he is right. Like, we've said this multiple times on the show, Luxon left the door open a crack just to get Winston in. So he's not wrong, but to just go out in front of the press and go, "Yeah, I put him there, I can take him out again." You know, essentially that's the other part of what he's saying. And he said it before. He said it about Jacinda, that he made her prime minister. He's got, I mean, this is shocking, I'm sure, to a lot of people. Winston seems to have a very high opinion of himself.
Really?
I don't know if you guys have noticed that.
Really? I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, he does. Does he reference himself as the kingmaker? Is that his words or someone else's words?
I guess what I wonder now is what's the mechanics of this? Does this mean Phil Goff has to pack up and come back to New Zealand and they have to find someone else? Wow.
Yeah. And it's usually a political appointment. There's a handful of these diplomatic posts that are usually political leaders, Canberra, London, DC, and so it'll be interesting to see who this government chooses to reward with the London posting. Absolutely.
Is it a reward? Is it kind of a top position, and like what do you actually do as the High Commissioner? Is it just sort of a diplomatic, I'm here representing?
Yeah. And especially in that one of these big postings where you've got lots of staff, you know, he's not having to deal with the everyday things of Kiwis in New Zealand, in London, who are in trouble or whatever. You know, his job is to be New Zealand's representative at events like this Chatham House event, at national days and all those kind of things. So there is prestige in that, and it is, you know, seen as a sort of one of the rewards that ex-politicians can get, as one of these prestigious postings. Absolutely.
Yeah. The one I can remember is, I think, Trevor Mallard's in Ireland. Yeah, Dublin. That was very much seen as a pat on the back and off you go. Can imagine that's a pretty cruisy job.
Yeah, exactly. Who they choose for this one, it'll be interesting to see. You know, will it be someone from national? Will it be someone with a New Zealand First background, for example? Will be an interesting question. But I guess we'll see.
Is this a good opportunity to get rid of Richard Prebble?
Mad Dog. I don't know if you want to have him over there representing New Zealand.
Yeah, that's the trade-off there. The question that I have for you, Clint, is what do you think? If I don't even know if it's an if question, but what do you think Trump would have thought about his comments, or were it just going straight over his head?
Well, I wonder whether this was like how did this get picked up and land on Peter's desk? Like, it's not like Peters is watching this. It seems unlikely that someone in Goff's staff would have dobbed him in up the chain back to MFAT and then onto the minister. I wonder if someone in the US embassy saw it and it got bounced to the New Zealand government that way. It's a question I don't know, but I mean, I wouldn't have got up to Trump's level, but maybe someone in the US delegation to take offense.
Yeah, I mean, ordinarily, I'd say the US diplomatic corps would be, thick-skinned enough to not really care. But this is a different bunch.
Yeah.
So I could imagine that's happening, of someone firing that down the chain and go, "Have you heard what this guy's fucking said about us? I think it's about us. Anyway, I'm angry." And then that's got back to Winston very, very quickly. Yeah, I didn't even notice when he made these comments. How long ago was it?
It's a good question. Not sure when the original story came out.
I haven't seen the timeline on that.
I think it was the 4th London time. So, yeah, that's only 36 hours ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's not something that's bubbled through the system. It's been quite quick.
Yeah, it's interesting. There wasn't a please explain. There wasn't, there doesn't seem to have been that Peters talked to Goff and they talked it through, or it seems that he acted very quickly.
Well, interestingly, it was stated that actually Winston Peters didn't make the final. He may have made the call, but he didn't actually give the actually made the call himself. That it was his administration team that actually sent the message essentially. But I assume that it came from Peters.
I think that's probably for a technical reason, that they know how to send an email, whereas Winston was probably putting it in a sealed canvas bag for the next clipper to England, and then it would have taken a bit too long, so someone's just got in there.
Yeah, needed some help from the Zoomers, right?
Yeah.
That is interesting, though. Yeah.
Clint, is there anything that you want to let us in on? Is there anything else you wanted to say around this particular topic? I assume this is probably the last we'll hear about it, or do you reckon this is a story that might continue on?
I think the question of did the US complain will play out, and these things are diplomatically sensitive, so it may be that the official information around that is withheld when people ask. But I think that's an interesting question that people want to know, and also, why was it so quick? Why was there no please explain? Why was there no meeting? Why was it just you're out, mate? I think just the final thing from me on this is that this dynamic between Peters and Luxon is so interesting. It goes right back to when Luxon tottled around the country like an eager schoolboy during the coalition negotiations. Winston went up to Auckland. Luxon follows him up. Oh, he's down at Wellington now. Down he goes. And right there, he gave away the power in the relationship. Each party in the coalition has a veto, right? You need all of them to make the majority, but that means they're all equally powerful. Not that Luxon is the weakest of the three, but he's made himself the weakest of the three via these actions like this, and it just makes you wonder how's it going to play out when we hit crunch points later this year, like the ferries, like the budget, like Peters no longer being deputy prime minister. These are ruction points, and if Peters is openly thumbing his nose at Luxon now and saying, "I can do whatever I want, and you won't do anything about it."
They've been doing it the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, he gets that from both.
Been doing it the whole time. Yeah. This is not even a now thing. This is just as a continuation. I don't understand why. I don't know if it's the public haven't picked it up, or we're just kind of sick of hearing why are you so weak to Luxon, and it's just. It seems to almost roll off his back a little bit. I feel like it's getting annoying to me, but I don't know if the general public are getting annoyed with it,
Well, I think the polling's, he's down his preferred PM ratings, nationals in the toilet, the
trend is not kind.
Yeah, seriously saying this could be a one-term government, and I think that rests on Luxon and how he's leading his government.
I mean, you guys know that I hate repeating myself and really laboring a point and just beating the dead horse. But Luxon's not very good at this. He's not a politician, and it's moments like these that show he does not have control of his other coalition leaders, and he treats them like it's not even like you said, it's not equal. It shouldn't be equal. He's the majority coalition partner. He's the one that got the most of the votes, right? So he should be going to you to these two. Fucking fight it out amongst yourselves, but everything goes through me. The buck stops with me, and we've never seen that from him. Never ever. It's always been like, well, I have total faith in whatever the fuck is going on. Don't ask me about the details. I don't care. So yeah, this is what we've got. He's not a leader. He's a middle manager.
Yeah, and I think the middle manager's the thing, right? Like, I don't know how the style would have worked in New Zealand. Like, did people go off and order planes without running it past them first? You know, like he's the CEO. The CEO is actually meant to exercise control and hire and fire, and he seems very unwilling to.
Somebody under him thought it was a good idea to fix turbines for the Saudi military while they were bombing the shit out of villages. So I assume that didn't go through the CEO.
Yeah.
I was talking about that actually recently about the CEO thing with the whole way things are currently working is it's kind of like if one of your middle managers, the people below you, your executive team, if one of them was doing financial fraud or something like that, or it was found out, and then the CEO goes, "Oh well, I have full faith in my executive team to sort it out amongst themselves and their portfolio. You know, this really has nothing to do with me," sort of thing. You can't get away with that. At the end of the day, it falls on you as a CEO, and a lot of CEOs fall because of that sort of shit that happens under their leadership. Whether or not they acted to get rid of the person, if someone was fraudulent or there was some financial issues going on, you're the CEO, the one that takes the blame. But we don't seem to see this happening if we look at it the same way. You know, as a company, the government is a company. We just don't see the same thing.
I mean, imagine in an alternate world where Luxon is good at this. Right, this gets front-footed by, hey, look, I was made aware by Winston Peters, the foreign minister, that our High Commissioner to London said some comments. They put us in a very fragile place with one of our major trading partners. So I made the call to terminate his commission. That was my call as the leader. He's coming home. Same result, very different statement being made there. That is not the leader that we have.
Yeah. And, well, you know, in a year and a half or maybe sooner, the shareholders in New Zealand will get to decide if they want to keep the CEO. So on current track,
customers have a lot of power. Yes. Customers have quite a lot of power, don't they? Well, they should. Clint, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. And thanks for giving some insight to that. Definitely a story that we'll keep an ear out on, and we'll definitely have you back to talk more to it if there's any more updates, I guess, and any other things political.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Clint. Always good to have you on.